the wheels fell off and fused the house lights. So anyway, hello everybody. Welcome to tonight's Interesting Modelling Company midweek special. We did resist the temptation actually tonight to broadcast in black and white.
It was close though. We both had it set up. We could actually
halfway through the show we could actually revert to black and white as an energy saving measure. To be honest with you, I know it's a very serious subject, but to be honestly, if we weren't sat here cracking jokes, we'd just go potty over the situation. So and Drew and I,
bear with us if it cuts out halfway through. It's not us, it's the power cuts.
It's bear with us that Drew and I both grew up in an era where you'd be sat watching the television, all of a sudden, power cut.
Can somebody put 50 pence in the country, please?
Anyway, welcome to the midweek one. How are you this evening, Mr. Drew?
I'm okay.
Are you?
Okay. Yeah, I'm all right. I've had a good weekend. I travelled up to Manchester, saw some music, ate, drank, and was merry with friends, and had a really, really rather nice weekend.
Did you?
Well, it was my first proper. I've had that car 18 months. It was my first trip that left Somerset in it.
I was just going to say, you've just reminded me. I just need to. It's funny that because it's only in recently. It was to explain that that in the last year or so, Drew and I have both acquired new vehicles. When I say new, it's not like we're so massively rich that we've been going out and buy brand new cars. But we've both got new vehicles. And,
new to us.
New to us, yeah, exactly, new to us. And mine has actually now slipped the surly bonds of Somerset and has actually been to Devon a couple of times. But neither of us have really had the pleasure of even having trips in each other's cars at the moment.
Having said that, I have been to Dorset twice.
You have been to Dorset twice, okay?
Yeah.
Well,
the Grand.
because
I went to Dorchester a couple of times.
And Bovington, of course.
Oh, cool! Yeah, of course, yeah, Bovington, yeah, 3 times. Hey, get me
3 times. Okay,
globe trotting.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. My globe trotting this year has taken me to, South Gloucestershire, which is just literally over the river to Severn Beach. So South Gloucestershire. Have I been to Wiltshire? Nope. Devon. 1, 2, 3. Devon a few times, 3 or 4 times this year. Glamorganshire, been to Newport a couple of times. Monmouthshire as well, been to Chepstow, whatever, and somewhere else. Dorset, Tank Museum. That's it. And that's it. That's just been my.
Yeah. So I finally got to do I did about 500 miles over the weekend in total between Thursday and Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
So very good, very good. Of course, it meant I couldn't join you on the extravaganza that was your weekend, but
we'll come to that in a moment. But just to say that today I had a rather splendid walk with my friend Alan, and we did part of the Strawberry Line old disused railway. We went from Winscombe to Axbridge. I got to say, in Axbridge, there's a darn fine tea room, the Alms House Tea Room in Axbridge, and yes, of course. There we go. That was today's cake sample.
I'm sure I've been there.
It's very good. Very, very good. Very impressive.
Sure.
And then on the way back, we got it slightly the wrong way around today. On the way back, there's a little tea room right where we parked in Winscombe. So I had tea and some chunky chips. So we had just walked 6 miles. So I thought, I've earned this.
Our week in food.
Our weekend. Well, it would not be the Interesting Modelling Company without some reference to cake.
Well, some cake.
Yeah, and obviously, some of us over the weekend had our cake and ate it because I took the decision in the end that I to attend the We Have Ways Fest at the Black Pit Brewery in Buckinghamshire, Black Pit Farm, but it's the Black Pit Brewery. I was told that the venue is not going to be like Telford, that where the modelling room was going to be was full of air, and it was, we were going to be totally safe and everything. And you know what? It was. I know some people are thinking, "Oh, you're not going to Telford, but you decided to go to this gig in in Wastefest." What's all that about, JM? Completely different. It was a
it's a
completely
festival.
different.
It's a festival. It was completely that there was a strict limit on numbers.
Yeah.
It was a festival, so the majority of it was kind of in a field outside, and when you're inside, it was a great big tent. It wasn't, it's just effectively it's the same reason I was happy to go to Bloodstock, but I had an anxiety attack in Bovington.
Yeah. Well, you and me both, and where we were in the one of the barns, like an old stone barn with the stable doors, the double swing stable doors. So where we were, we had the upper door open behind us. There were 2 full doors open for the one-way system in and out, and we had one of the other stable doors open as well. So all day we just had fresh air was circulating in. The table where we were, the tables were double stacked backwards, so that we had a double tables width, between people coming in. I also had masks on. In fact, I had my rather natty new Tamiya mask on, which you might have noticed in the photographs. You don't worry, we've got one for you. And
thank you very much.
That's all right. That and a Blue Peter badge. And so I did not at any stage feel threatened or anxious or anything. And even when you went walkabout, people were still being sensible. So yeah, completely different atmosphere, a completely different setup to Telford. And yeah, it was fabulous. It really was. I be quite frank with you, I had a lot of anxieties about going there, and even the drive up on the Saturday, I was still, it's just don't even think about it, distract yourself. But once we got there, it was fine. It was fine. Although I will tell the funny story on the. We left very early on Saturday morning, so I got there Saturday morning. So it's like at model shows when you're trying to set up, and people start milling around as you're trying to set up things, right? Yeah. And it's like
been there, done that.
Yeah, that phenomena was there and whatever. So we had to make 2 or 3 trips to the car parked in the field to get all the gear into the barn. You see, so I'm a bit hot and bothered. My glasses are all misted up. I got my mask on and everything. So I'm finally setting stuff up on the table, and whatever. And it's just like, somebody behind you, morning, and you're just like, oh God, can I just please set up the stand, please? Right. So I kind of turn around to look. To kind of like, what now, right? You can guess who it was, can't you?
Al Murray.
And it was like that millisecond of me just controlling that face from kind of like, oh, what now? And I'm just like, oh no. And yeah, that was quite funny actually. It was but yeah, it was a very good weekend. There was lots of some nice military hardware there. Obviously, from my point of view, Kettenkrad, Schwingwagen, and the Kugelwagen. So I was just like, yes, like that. A lot of Bren carriers. I should have been doing Bren carrier modelling demonstrations on the hobby company stand.
So the Bren carrier is one of those really popular subjects for sort of restorers and stuff, isn't it? So because it's small and relatively cheap to run, I would think. Once you've got one and just kind of restored it.
No, it was just so many vehicles I didn't get a chance to photograph because I just didn't have didn't have the time. I had 2 days there, didn't have the time. And what else did they have there? I took some photographs of the Sherman and the T-34 they had there. They had a couple, about 2 or 3 white Scout cars. I love that vehicle.
Sounds like they had a really nice lineup then. Because it was one of those, because there was a couple of other Warfest, there was Warfest as it's called and stuff this weekend as well, wasn't there? So it would have been, quite a bit of competition for resources, I would think. So it's good to know that there was still a lot of stuff, there. But yeah, I mean, I was, like I say, I'm kind of gutted that I didn't get a chance to go either. I mean, if I hadn't had this weekend planned since January. I would have either gone as, the stand, or I would have gone on my own anyway, because I'm an independent company member anyway. So, it's not only is it my area of interest, but I also I'm an avid listener to the podcast, and I'm a Patreon as well. So one way or the other, I would have gone if I hadn't already been previously engaged.
And I think this is the thing that really kind of impressed me, because I mean, essentially, podcasts are just they're radio shows without a radio station. I think it's a good way of putting it. That's how I think of them. They're audio shows. They're I think of them as they're on the same spectrum as radio, really. But the thing is, I just thought it was marvelous that here was a festival that had sprung up purely on the strength of an audio program, and they sold out all the tickets in advance. They had, I don't know what it was a limited number of tickets. All the tickets are sold out in advance. I kept thinking throughout the weekend, I must pop over to the merch tent, because I saw people with We Have Ways mugs, and We Have Ways. This is the We Have Ways of Making You Talk podcast, in case anybody late to the game doesn't know what we're talking about, with Al Murray and James Holland. They have We Have Ways t-shirts, We Have Ways mugs, all manner of things. And I thought at one stage I'd kind of like, I need to go and get some merch now. Went over there, all the merch had gone. Everything. Every last scrap of merch had gone. I think some people,
ladies and gentlemen, is why I don't have a We Have Ways mug.
That's why.
Because John left it too late and didn't get me one.
I rather shamefacedly also, I didn't realise that you didn't yet have a copy of Brothers in Arms, because I could have picked you up a signed copy.
Because it's not out until next week.
Whoopsie. You'd have told me.
I've listened to. Well, it didn't really occur to me that it was just, James Holland's been talking about it James and Al have been talking about it for the last year on the podcast as he's been writing the book, and it just really wets the whistle for wanting to get to grips with it, because it's it's not just a technical thing about the tanks and the operations. It's a very human story as well that he's written. So I really want to. I'll order it next week. It's not a problem. I'll get a copy of it.
Well, I was going to say I'm just going to try and grab the picture here, because I haven't managed to. I forgot to load it up. But one of the I don't know how you describe it. A joy, a pleasure, a humbling, quite a moving experience. Actually, was meeting Captain Stan Perry, who was one of the Sherwood Yeomanry.
Right.
When you think about the story of the Sherman Yeomanry, that there are still survivors out there these days is quite a remarkable thing. And there he is, signing a book. What a remarkable guy. I tell you what, he had more energy than me on the day. And he absolutely stunning. And just to listen to him talking to people and people talking to him, like I say, inspiring, humbling.
The thing is, people, we're losing these people. It's time is marching on. I can remember it was probably about 15 years ago now. I was in my local, the Barn Club, which is a local pub stroke club across literally 300 yards away from me, and I'm just chatting to an old gent in there, and he starts talking about his wartime, and you start asking a few questions here and there, and he realizes that your interest, long range desert group in World War II, wasn't he? It was like, well, allow me to buy you a pint, sir. Allow me to buy you another pint, sir. Would you like another pint, sir? Just kept him talking all night. He did manage to get through about 8 pints, so bless him.
Well, I'll tell you what.
It was just like this totally engrossing evening where, he's found somebody who's interested in what he's got to say.
Yeah.
And I found somebody who's got an incredible story. So, a night buying him beer was an absolute privilege.
Yeah. I tell you what, people, if you head over onto Facebook and if you search, just search at Captain Stan Perry, there is the page about him and for him, and it tells his story, and he is just an utterly remarkable man. And somebody did give him a model of a Sherman Firefly, which is fantastic. What a guy. One of those kind of like, how can you describe it? It's just one of those life-affirming experiences to be in the presence of him, much like when I that time when I met oh blimey, your Canadian astronaut fella. I've forgotten his name now. Chris Hadfield, yeah.
Commander Hadfield to you.
Sorry?
Commander Hadfield to you.
Yeah, exactly. Or to me, he was just like, because I was just like mind blown. But yeah, so yeah, just and again, I didn't get to see half the military hardware there. I didn't get to go into any of the talks that were in the main tent, which were very interesting as well for the mix of speakers. But they're all filmed and they're all going to be broadcast, which is good. Yeah, so for the most of the time, that was that was me gluing together the new Zvezda 76mm Sherman, which is fabulous. I'm enjoying that one at the moment. And I've got a couple of other. I've got a little Zvezda 1/100 scale Valentine to chuck together at some stage. But it was building that on the Saturday. Then I finally got around to putting some paint on the Tamiya Panzer IV on the Sunday. So that was progress. But honestly, the time went like that.
Yeah.
There was me.
It always does at these shows, doesn't it? I mean, I think when you're sat doing demos and at a table and stuff, you don't really get much time to look around and take in other aspects of the show. And then before you know where you are, you're like, oh, I wish I'd taken an hour out to go and have a look at this or that, and you're packing up to go home.
Yeah. And I didn't. Unfortunately, for some reason I missed being able to chat to James Holland, and it's something I deeply regret. But yes, I did get to meet Mr. Al Murray himself, and was able to present him with a pair of Airfix Cromwells, because they are his, as you've seen his Tank Museum videos, they are his favourite tank. What I wasn't expecting was that he then went away, and then 5 minutes later came back and said, I'd like Airfix to have these. These are my 2 Cromwell builds. And it's like, again, you're just knocked away by the guys. He was never too busy to talk to people at the show over the weekend.
I guess a lot of it was he's a fan as well, so he'd have sort of, the logistics side of it was dealt with before the show started. So I suspect he and James were able to enjoy themselves almost as punters, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
I'll tell you something though. When he came over to us on the last day and we were chatting again, I mean, the poor guy, he looked absolutely. He'd obviously, the adrenaline had just finally given up for the weekend, and it was like, but he was still kind of like digging into those final few things of reserves of energy. But honestly, as a modeler, just so enthusiastic. And I said to him, "You've been a terrific." Without sounding like an utter sycophant, but he has been a terrific ambassador for the hobby. But also, as he said himself, that he needed something to keep him glued together, if you pardon the pun.
Yeah.
When the lockdown kicked in, so he's been a great ambassador for that. And as I say, the number of people who started coming out of the woodwork, who started building models because of what he was doing. And it just snowballed from there. And to kind of like, I didn't want to eat up too much of his time over the weekend, but just to chat to him, and just his enthusiasm and his knowledge as a modeler is really quite something. And so, and as I said, given how grumpy I was on Saturday morning of trying to set up, as I say, the courtesy he showed people, the enthusiasm, the energy he had, and the fact that he was never too busy to stop to talk to people, or people asking questions, or just to pose for photographs and stuff. I use the phrase model professional. I'm not trying to overwork the metaphors here, but it's an example of how you deal with people. And again, that's something else I came away from thinking to myself, yeah, okay, that's a lesson.
There's always lessons to be learned from other people who know more than you about a subject, and if anybody knows about working a crowd, it's gonna be Al Murray, isn't it? To be fair. But again, I made this comment last week on his Twitter feed that I think these days, for me, I think Al Murray historian. I think I regard, to me, his comedian thing is his side hustle to support his historian activities almost. So the independent company and the Road to Berlin series and stuff like that he did, they're how I think of him now. And it's sort of like sometimes I see him doing a pub landlord set and like, oh yeah, he's a comedian, isn't he? That's right. Whereas 15 years ago it was like, oh, he's a historian. That's completely flipped in my mind these days. I just think of him as a historian first and foremost, and I would hope that he's not too offended by that.
No, I don't think I think that's a fair assessment. And I do remember one of the things going back about 10 years ago, December 2010, he did a series of BBC Four. It was Al Murray's Germany, where he said that as a comedian he spent so long making jokes at the expense of Germany that he thought he needed to go and learn something about Germany. And it was an absolute eye-opener, because some of the things, he's going through the history and the history and the similarities, the fact that the British and the Germans are essentially one nation divided by a different language, and also some of the architecture and the art and everything. And I sat there and I remember watching it over Christmas, thinking, on the run up to Christmas, thinking, I really want to visit Germany. And it was just his enthusiasm, but his way of conveying it was the thing that just, we
are historically and culturally far closer to Germany than we will ever have been to France, and that's not intended because as you know, I'm quite the Francophile these days.
Yeah.
But historically and culturally, we are far more aligned with Germany than we ever were with France. If you sort of exclude the two minor, two minor scuffles we had in the 20th century. But those you can almost characterize as, sibling fighting.
It was two royal families falling out with each other, essentially. Or two wings of the same royal family falling out with each other.
Talking of Germany and those sorts of interests, Katja Hoyer and Dominic Oliver or some, I can't remember his name, but she's a German based in the UK. She's a historian, and he's a Brit based in Berlin. And they've just started a podcast series called Tommy's and Jerry's, which is another one that is absolutely delightful to listen to. So if people are interested in that kind of history, especially of Germany, and our relationship, the UK's relationship with Germany, it's an absolutely fabulous podcast to listen to. All the normal places, Spotify and places like that. But yeah, Tommy's and Jerry's, it's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, highly recommended. And also Katja Hoy has done a book called Blood and Iron, which is about sort of Germany's formation and into the early 20th century. And she's currently working on a book which will be about East Germany. Sort of lifting the veil on East Germany. She's just been sort of commissioned to write that because she's from East German stock. So she started writing that. So this is a bit more of a podcast episode, isn't it? Really, than a modelling.
Well, it's all interlinked. With all this. I
like to think that, as generally speaking, as our hobby is populated by historians. As much as the artistic side of what we do is the history side of what we do. So, I listen to podcasts for hours and hours a week, and just to learn and find out what's going on, and sort of like having my eyes open over the last couple of years to, our relationship with Germany and Germany's relationship with us historically has been just absolutely brilliant. So
well, I did very briefly on the Sunday. I did actually manage to catch part of Katja Hoyer's talk at Wazefest, which was Aftermath Germany 1945 to 1949, and it was again, it was absolutely fascinating. Unfortunately, I just again I was stretched for time. But
yeah, I mean, had I been there this weekend, you would have been on your own for that talk, because I would have been front and center. I just think she's one of the most engaging, interesting, and funny people.
Very funny, very funny.
She's got a real because she's developed a real kind of cross, Anglo-German sense of humor over the years she's been here. So it really, really works well. So yeah, I'm really sort of. There's little bits about this weekend I'm bummed I didn't make, and it was a shame it was that weekend and it all sort of piled up. But I had previous engagements, so couldn't really change them.
Like I say, I had to, I had to really kind of like dig deep to kind of like convince myself that, overcome the anxieties and to actually go to the weekend. And you know what? It was very fulfilling. There we go. I knew I had a picture somewhere. That was Katya's talk on the Sunday when I was there. And it's the other thing that I found really very fulfilling over the weekend was because it wasn't a model show.
Yes.
So you weren't necessarily preaching to the converted. You had a lot of people there. There were modelers there, obviously. But you also had a lot of people there who were the phrase that I heard, the two phrases I heard was I've just started making models, or I've just returned after a long break. And you're just trying to and you are trying to give them the best advice that you can and not overload them, which I know is something.
I think that's almost the trick, isn't it? I'm sort of seeing a lot of stuff on a lot of the on a lot of Facebook pages and stuff now, where people really, really quickly overload brand new modelers with information and technique, rather than saying, you know what, just build it. Just build it.
Get toolkit.
Yeah.
Toolkit. And in fact, that is one of the things, one of the ideas that Mr. Andrew Farmer and I were bouncing around when he wasn't offering me a job in the fire escape trade, was that I said about for these future shows, future shows, is to make some little kind of like info cards, so that when people say, I've just started building, what do you recommend? What do you recommend? You literally say, okay, look, here you go. Here are some kits, basic kits that you can, go for. So you're interested in tanks. Okay. To me, a 35th scale, Daimler armored car. 48 scale Daimler armored car. It's cheap-ish. It's a good price. But then you just say, and these are the paints you need, and these are the tools you need, and it's like the basic thing. It's like that's it, and it's just a very basic kind of info.
Yeah,
card.
I mean, I almost wonder if that they couldn't, for these kinds of shows, put together a show special with a basic toolkit and a kit. For people.
There you go, Mr. Farmer. It's not just the looks with this one. He's got the old brains as well.
Well, it just makes sense to me, because then you're getting everything either, like hobby company branded, and it's like, I'm interested in coming back into modeling. Well, okay, so we've got these that have been put together by industry.
I think the only problem you got there is because you're kind of like it's to do with not upsetting your traders at shows.
I understand that, but I'm thinking of shows like this. I'm thinking of shows like
that is actually a very good idea, and that will be forwarded to the relevant people for their.
I mean, it would be, you're looking at a deal, but not something that's going to seriously undercut.
No.
It's a show special, literally a show special, and most of the traders do show specials anyway. So that's just a thought. It's just that
it's a good idea. It's certainly worth throwing out there. But as I say, the fact that you were talking a lot of the time to people who were, how can we word this, on the peripheries of the hobby.
Yeah. I see David Mummery there says, and how many non-modelers go to a modelling show? If you sat behind a desk talking to people, Dave, lots.
Yeah.
It's you are forever getting people who said, used to do it, don't do it anymore. Really would like to, wish I hadn't stopped, and all that sort of thing. But yeah, you do tend, and a fair smattering of people just going for an afternoon out if the show isn't, if it's not an expensive entry or anything like that, people will go along for an afternoon out. I think, it's a perfectly legitimate or doable thing.
Yeah, we will play catch up with the comments in a second, but I will just, perhaps as a final thing to stop wittering on about. Well, it's a couple of things. I was given the wrong pass. Incidentally, I was given a pass that said speaker. Where is it?
Oh dear.
Yeah, I was going to pass that said speaker, but I tell you what, it's like people, right, sir, all right, sir. And I thought, why are people doffing their caps to me and things? And it's just like, that was quite funny. Because I actually asked. Then I spoke to one of the organisers. I said, "Is there? Because it's a brewery. I must tell that story. Is there, is there a brewery? Is there actually a shop here where I can buy some bottles of beer?" They'll find out for me. They say, so they go on the old walkie-talkie. It's like, yeah, asking if there's any bottles of beer for saying, yeah, he is one of the speakers. And I'm like, no, I'm not a speaker. I'm honestly not a speaker. Yeah, okay, yeah, somebody will be over later on. Somebody came over later on with 3 bottles of beer.
Nice.
I offered to give them money for it. They said, no, you're fine. It's thank you for coming. And I'm just like, but I'm just a bloke sat behind a table gluing models together. I thought, the really funny thing was that on the Saturday night they actually ran out of beer. They actually had to get some more kegs in. And nice. I did say to Mr. Murray, you know what that means, don't you? He said, yes, literally, we couldn't organise in a brewery. So also the curry man ran out of curry. That's amazing.
So, basically, what you're describing to me is a roaring success.
Yeah, well, they ran out of beer and curry, and you weren't there. That's the amazing thing. Yeah. So, however, I will end before I bore everybody's senses with this, because I'm going to be dining out on this for a very.
I don't think you could end. I don't think you could bore people with this, because it's clearly a great weekend, and long may they continue.
Absolutely. Well, fingers crossed. As I say, they sold all the tickets in advance. They sold out the merch. They sold out of beer, and they sold out of curries. So fingers crossed. I'm hoping there will be another one next year. So yes. We'll keep our fingers crossed. In the meantime, I can't make any promises, but I have spoken to Mr. Murray about coming onto this show either as a live or a pre-record, and he has expressed very kindly an interest in doing so. So we will see what we can do. Obviously, he's a very, very busy man, and we got to do it as and when he's free. But yeah, if it's at all possible,
very much his.
We are working on it, and we're very grateful to him for even considering appearing on this unmitigated nonsense from Somerset. So,
yes, 2 hours a week of aimless wittering.
I'll tell you what, though. I'll tell you the other funny thing was that we were talking about Andy Farmer was talking about model shops in around the area about Bristol and whatever, and we mentioned Antics, and Al Murray said, "Oh yeah, I was in Antics on Wednesday." It was just like, I thought, I bet Mr. Hills didn't even know that.
No, probably he was probably out the back having a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Probably out the back having a coffee. You never guess who just came in, Andy. Who's that? Who got 2 Andys or whatever? And we're delighted to know that on the way back, we actually almost resurrected a tradition of sorts, because on the way back I did hook into Andy's Bluetooth stereo, did play the Cinema Show by Genesis.
Excellent.
And also because it was Sunday evening, I Know What I Like. Which
look, Andy just said, there you go, Andrew Hills. Didn't know that. No, we suspect you didn't, Andy.
And obviously that Genesis song, I Know What I Like, contains the immortal line, "Sunday night, Mr. Farmer called," which is it's an in-joke with us, but hey ho.
It's an in-joke, but one we never get bored of, even if other people do.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when the man himself is sat in the car laughing at the reference. So here we go. We will say, I've been picked up on pronunciations again, so we will say hello to Pavel Kropovich. Kropovich?
I say Pavel Kropovich.
He said don't pronounce the U. We'll come to that in a minute. So Pavel's the first person tonight. So we're going to say hello to Pavel, just call him Pavel from now on, Dave Swindle, Mike Williams, Mark Ryan, Paul Milligan, Ian Goldstraw, Lee Suter, Dave Mummery, Ofer Cohen. See, here we go. He says, "Oh, John, are you ready for the next lesson in my name? Try putting the accent on O and not O. Oh, okay. So, Kropovich.
Kropovich.
We're going to get him on the show.
Kropovich? Yeah, we're going to get him on the show. And so you tell us.
We're going to get everywhere on the show just to make sure we're getting the pronunciations. Douglas Hunter, Mike, just somebody called Mike. Mike, Simon Parker, Anthony Bird, Brian Wilton, Stephen Pryor, Tim Alexander Maunder, Dave Fleming, Greg Woodbridge, Damien Munnan, Dougal McWiggle, Matthew Walker, Darren Cook, Andrew Hills, Stuart Clark of the Scale Model podcast. Give that a listen. That's an excellent podcast. Crazy Locker, who says the retailer should be participating in that, backed by the manufacturer. Yep, that's a very good idea. And blah 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 blah. I'm just going down, scrolls down. So we got a full house tonight, full madhouse, in fact. But yeah, and as I said, this is something I think we'll open this up as a discussion for the second part of this show, because it's a kind of like a tricky question to ask people, but I mean, we may have actually kind of done this before, but do we as modelers actually, and especially modelers who do broadcast shows or who engage a lot in social media and have our modeling pages and things, to some extent, do we actually have a I'm going to use the word, I'm going to phrase this very broadly, but do we actually have a responsibility to be ambassadors for this hobby? Because I think we do. I think in terms of, I think we have had this conversation before, because I'm getting deja vu of the old expressions.
I got it right. What's
that?
You look at the comments.
Drew got it right. Okay.
Krupovich.
So what did you say?
Krupovich.
Not Krupovich. Krupovich. Okay.
Krupovich.
Put the humble pie on for me. Thank you.
Yeah,
and the
excellent. I kind of, I don't feel like we have an obligation, but on the other hand, why else would we do it?
We're putting ourselves out there.
Yeah, I mean, are
we not already, by doing that, actually by extension, being ambassadors?
We're sort of ambassadors by default, because we're not here every week putting the hobby down, are we? We are, we're putting people down. We're trying to encourage people into the hobby.
Are we ambassadors for our own enthusiasm?
Yeah, I don't feel.
We're not here to do a hard sell for manufacturers and things like that. But
I don't feel obligated. But I do feel that we are, just by default, because of our enthusiasm for what we do. We are ambassadors, but I don't feel an obligation to be so.
No, but going back to what we were saying earlier on about how you get newcomers or people who are returning to the hobby, and they just get overloaded with well-meaning but sometimes utterly impractical suggestions. And it's things like that where I think, it's one of the things we're trying to do here is demystify certain elements of the hobby and saying you don't have to be throwing all this money at it. You can actually get by on a minimal thing. And I think in that, when I say ambassadors in that regard, I mean, we are trying to engage people. We're trying to keep people engaged. And we're trying to keep people enthused and inspired at the same time, rather than, because I think you and I know there sometimes can be an incredible amount of negativity out there, but that's just not our shtick. We try not to engage in that, and we try to encourage people wherever we can. So I think we are just we are default ambassadors just by dint of doing this a couple of times a week. But it certainly wasn't a mission statement, if you like. No.
Oh, great, guys! Next time we'll move on to my first name. He's not going to let it go. Is it not just Pavel? It's Pavel, isn't it?
Well, welcome to the Pavel Krupovich show.
The Polish pronunciation show.
Yes, we were going to get. That's it, Pavel. You're on. You are coming on the show, and that's it. We've been provoked.
I kind of, I think we are just ambassadors by what we do.
What we do, and Spencer Pollard says that's got to be my new band name, Default Ambassadors. Oh, that's nice. Apparently it's Powell. Okay. Well, we've gone from
I
Powell.
don't even know what that L is on the end.
Cozy Powell and Powell. So, yeah. I hope no kind of like historians / stand-up comedians are watching this, because this is rapidly going away from modelling and just becoming kind of like, the pronunciation show.
Yeah,
but no, I think as we're saying, it is a kind of we don't want not so much ambassadors. Let's just say, put it this way: we don't want to put people off the hobby.
No, and we want to convince people that it's a hobby worth pursuing.
We will be. I will catch up with that one in a minute. We will speak our minds when we don't like kits, or we don't like a certain product or whatever. That doesn't stop us from being honest. But it's that kind of thing where all you got to do is a bit like you with that Trumpeter Hornet. You built it, it went together, and you put it in the bin, and that's it. You, to your credit, you have not then made a career out of reminding everybody 5 minutes of that experience. And unfortunately, you can see how sometimes that metamorphosizes into people kind of like they see the manufacturer and they're just going to constantly say negative things about them based on an experience of one kit. You've had that one experience, that one kit you didn't like, into the bin it went, you've moved on.
I bought one kit over the weekend, and it was a trumpeter kit. So I clearly am not, I clearly am taking every release by them as it's, as it comes and based on its merits. Because nobody gets, because whether people like it or not, Trumpeter have done a lot of superb stuff. They've also tripped up fairly often. There's nothing wrong with highlighting that when it happens with any company, for that matter.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that we're out to get anybody. And in terms of if we don't like a kit, we'll say it. If we don't like something, product, we'll say it. If we don't like a pervasive attitude we're seeing, we'll mention it. I don't see there's anything wrong with stimulating that kind of conversation. And we do that both. We try and steer away from it on here quite a lot, but people who know my personal pages and stuff will know I'm fairly free and frank with my opinions when something something irritates me. So
you just have to bear with me a second. I've just got to take a photograph. Just in case you're wondering, I'm trying to do tonight's live show with this sat right next to the MacBook, currently licking his backside. So.
Yes.
He's determined to get involved in the show in one way or another. So
I haven't seen Squirt today, so
here we go. Here's a very, very good point from Matthew Walker. He says Kitty Hawk has really been a subject of unreasonable hatred. And I'd agree with that. They've not helped themselves sometimes by some of the kind of some of the things they've done with some of their products, but on a kit by kit basis, I agree. I think it has just been the most ridiculous pile-on.
Yeah, I've if I'm blunt, I've had more bad experience with Kitty Hawk than good, but I have had good experiences with Kitty Hawk and took every release, as a fresh release and sort of was happy to see what it brought to the table. Like you say, they didn't help themselves quite often. They were quite sloppy in a lot of areas, quite sloppy research and stuff like that. But simply hating on a company like that just because they're there is not going to encourage anybody to do. And where are we now with Kitty Hawk? Well, they're not going to get any better now, are they?
No. And also, it's also just that thing sometimes when they'd announce something and it's just, let's have the pile on before the kit has even been released. And it's just that is, people want to do that. They can do it. They're free to do it. But I don't see constructively what that achieves other than,
which is kind of what I said about pervasive attitudes, when those
attitudes. Crazy Loca, who also says having a Polish last name, Crazy Loca, is easier to pronounce, says each kit on the on its own merits is sound advice I got from several great YouTubers, thankfully. Absolutely. Yep. It's and Mike Williams says, have you finished that Kitty Hawk 48 scale 2 guy yet, Drew?
Shall we just say no and move on?
Let's just say no, move on. Well, that's the point. No, move on.
It was one of those ones that sat around deckled and almost complete for several years, and I threw it in a bin. There you go. It's just because it was clearly never going to be finished to a standard I was happy with. But did I conquer the problems that I had with that kit? Yeah, and it wasn't terribly difficult. So there you go. There's a review of the Tuga. It was a troublesome kit in many ways with some of the interior fits and stuff, and it was not very troublesome in a lot of ways, and it went together okay. And I nearly finished it and then threw it away for reasons which are really unconnected with the kit.
Spencer Pollard says, oh, there we go. Wrong one there. He says, isn't it a fundamentally odd concept that you can hate a plastic kit or manufacturer? Yes, it is. It's at the end of the day, their boxes are plastic, and I've never understood this. And this goes back to wibbly wobbly effect. Now we're actually gonna be able to do this at some stage. That kind of is exactly get the old harp going. Is when I first started joining the old news. I was going a bit Terry Wogan there now. The old Newsnet program, the old Usenet, easy for you to say. The old Usenet news groups back in the old 1996s, 25 years ago. 25 years ago, I know. And I just remember being really taken aback by the hate that Hobbycraft were getting, the kit company.
Yeah. And
for me, Hobbycraft were at least attempting to do something different. They weren't doing F-16s and F-18s and Spitfires. Well, they were doing Spitfires and 109s and things, but they were doing Seversky P-35s. They were doing P-36s. They had done some Hispana Bucon 109s. They'd done some very early 109s.
And the S199 as well, they did.
Yeah, they did the Bell Aerocomet.
Yeah.
In 48 scale. They were really trying to do some quite unusual stuff. I built their F4U Corsairs. The only thing that was wrong with them was they had the misfortune to arrive at the same time the Tamiya one turned up.
Yeah, but I built one when it was first released. I built one, and it always has been a really, really, really nice model.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, 6 months later, Tamiya released a 48 scale one, which is beyond very, very, very nice. But it didn't mean that kit wasn't, wasn't valued in its own right and still a good build.
But I honestly could not get a handle on the vitriol being poured on Hobbycraft, and I kind of went looking at some of the models I built of them. I'm thinking, well, they look fine to me. And I didn't get it. And it seemed to be a kind of, it was almost like we'll choose his words carefully, but it was like a mob mentality thing. And I really didn't understand it. And I remember just being really taken aback that these are just boxes of plastic. Why are you being this kind of utterly negative about them? If you don't like them. But to then, to the point that some people are almost wishing the company to go bust because they don't like their kits, and it's like,
wouldn't it make more sense? Wouldn't it make more sense to wish that the company got better?
or if you don't like their kits, just don't buy them.
Don't buy them.
But
don't buy them.
Here we go. We've got some. Victor R. Russell Jr. says 72nd scale de Havilland Beaver and Otter single engine decent kits. Yeah, the Beaver and the Otter are very, very nice kits.
Caribou's lovely. Big old lumps of plastic. The Caribou's nice.
The Vampires are terrible, but Vampires are terrible.
That's down to that. But then you're just analysing each kit on its merits, aren't you?
Yeah.
Rather than the manufacturer.
The Vampires were terrible didn't stop me from then going out and buying some of their other kits.
Yeah, the vampire being terrible didn't stop the otter being basically good.
Yeah, Dave Swindle says, and the Beach Expedite. Yeah, Beach Expediters, very nice kits. I've still got up in the attic. I've got their little 72nd scale Avro. No, not the Avro. I was going to say Avro tutor, Canadair tutor.
Yes,
which is very nice.
Yeah.
Bit of a flat
and
canopy.
Banshee, they did the late model Banshee as well, which was
it's
basic, but it builds okay. It's a nice, basically it's accurate.
Well, at the time, even though their signature kits, the CF100 and the CF105, they're a bit kind of matchboxy, and they weren't going to set the modelling world alight with brand new standards. The fact that they even just went, we're going to do them. We're going to do them in 72nd scale and 48 scale. Yeah. I still think that deserves a round of applause.
And if you ever want to see what you can do with something as basic as their CF100, look at what Chris Colts did with one, and released a complete detail set for it in resin through Obscureco, his own resin company. So all these, most of these kits had potential. If the basic outline was there, they had potential. And like I say, that Banshee, the basic outline is there, and it's an easy, quick build. Is it very detailed? No, but as a place to start, why not? Why not?
But it was just, let's just say, I don't get it. I sincerely don't get it. We'll talk about it tonight, and then at the end of it, it's popped into my head tonight, and then we finish talking about it tonight. It will pop back out of my head because I should be enthused about building other things. I've got other projects that I'm getting on with, but as I say, this goes back to this thing about, are we by default ambassadors in some form or another, or do we have a duty to be ambassadors? There will be people who say, no, I haven't got a duty at all to sell this hobby to anybody. This is all about this. I will speak my mind, and fine, absolutely fine.
I think I don't feel I don't feel any any obligation, but I think we sell this hobby to people based on our enthusiasm for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it requires any particular effort from us to do so, because we're inherently enthusiastic about the hobby anyway. I like to think. So,
well, how can you not be in the era we're living in? How can you not be enthusiastic about the fact that between now and last Sunday, it was suddenly it's like we've had that that 32nd scale Spitfire has come from Couture. We've got Qatari. We'll get the pronunciation. People will be on to us again. We've got fine molds are doing that Mitsubishi F2.
Well, talking of fine molds,
here we go.
This Phantom, I haven't been very enthusiastic about this Phantom, have I?
No, you haven't.
I don't really like it. I don't really think it's a great kit. So in terms of taking each kit on its merits and saying I don't like that kit, they turned up this week.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, I've bought 2 more fine molds Phantoms because it's probably still the best 72nd scale Phantom you can get, and I want to kind of, having sorted out issues with what I feel are issues with the kit with that one, I want to have a go at a couple of the short nose ones and see where we get. So I'm not enthusiastic about that kit as it is, but I'm not giving up on it. I think that's enthusiasm, isn't it?
I think that's enthusiasm. We have live from the New Zealands, we have Craig Sargent. It's Kotare.
Kotare.
No, A. Was that A? I, sir? Kotare. I would pronounce that as A, as in Acer.
I'd say I.
Yeah.
As in I, skipper. But hey, there we go. But I mean, what can you say? New Kiwi kit sets, as they call them.
Yeah. And well, here we go. Bit of discussion, bit of robust discussion. Craig Sargent says, when a company releases a kit of an esoteric subject as a mainstream kit, but with serious issues, absolutely, you're not going to, if it has issues, it skirts over it. You don't skirt over them. You mention the issues, but then Gordon Sorensen says a basic kit of a little known and regarded aircraft is still better than no kit of it. And have you seen the prices asked for the Hobbycraft, Caribou, or Tutors?
Yeah,
No, I
they're
haven't.
not available now, so I would imagine that the Caribou, at least, I would imagine, is probably getting 80, 90 pound or whatever on eBay now, I would think.
And Craig Sargent says A. I think he means Kotare. Kotare. Anyway, well, we'll get to the bottom of this.
It's been all about pronunciation tonight, hasn't it?
About pronunciation, honestly. These usually go off on some kind of tangent in one way or another, and tonight it's all been about pronunciation. So, yeah, there we go. That's.
I mean, we thought all this time we were getting Mr. Krapovich's name wrong in the last bit, and it turns out we're getting the first bit wrong as well.
In our defence, I'm from Dudley. And Drew is 6'5" of Somerset Scotsman, so it's
yeah, we're not cut out for pronunciation.
We're not cut out for many things, trust me.
No.
But my limit is tea and cake, and that's it. I think even then,
I don't think do we need any more than that? I think tea and cake is fun.
Tea and cake is love, especially a Devon cream tea on a boat as a Spitfire flies over. Can't beat that.
Yeah, that was nice.
It was nice. A 2-seater as well. So
the Sesame Street of modelling. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
inhabited by Muppets is what I think he means.
I think you'll find us being described as Muppets is actually us going up in life. So, you pronounce my first name in Czech, but I like it that way. Well, I think we just need to move on tonight. You've got your Workbench cam set up. Were you actually going to show us anything on Workbench tonight, or is it?
No, not really. I mean, all I was planning to do was the show the like I say, there's the that's all it was really for. But this is a short notice, so. You
said that they have actually made a slight change to the tooling.
Yes, specifically the vertical fin. He says looking for it.
Might be the vertical bit.
The vertical fin there is now in one piece, rather than an ill-fitting insert that we have here on the long nose with a separate. I mean, a separate fin cap I get because there's lots of different fin caps, but that insert was really made no sense at all to me. There was no.
So the insert was on the leading edge, was it?
Well, there's an insert that goes. Bear with me. Let's get a
Sharpie pen. Come on, man. Show us.
Let's get a pointy thing.
Pointy thing.
This area here on the kit.
Oh,
so,
that never works.
Which kind of drops in, and it's one of the first things I said. I really don't like this, and as you can see, like I say, on the short nose ones, they've gone with a single piece fin. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I really thought that it's just some funny little things they've done, like the wing and the forward fuselage is split right through the middle of the Sparrow Bay, which Hasegawa in their defence managed to get around over 30 years ago now. And similarly, there's other bits. There's big inserts for the leading edge of the wing, which are molded in with the top side of the wing, which just they don't fit very well. I don't think it's Fine Mold's best work.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly in the design department, and they've sort of molded the intake ramps integrally with the intakes, which again Hasegawa sort of stopped doing 30 years ago when they started providing them separately, which means you can paint the entire model on its own, then drop the intake ramps in. I've actually cut them off this one, so that you can add them after. It's only a 2-minute job to do, but it's just why didn't they design the kit like that? It's just and my personal. Let's get this out of the bag a second.
Yeah, do you know what? If we were watching this at my place, you'd be throwing beer at the television, telling them to get it out of the bag.
This stupid spine insert that everybody does on the Phantoms now, for actually a tiny little bit of detail up the front here, which is the refueling door on the Air Force ones. But all it means is if this doesn't fit absolutely perfectly, you're left with 2 seams to clean up rather than one centerline seam. And you know, it's done to sort of preserve or give you this kind of detail. But there's no point if you lose all that detail when you're cleaning up the seam and then rescribing it. I just think it's a terrible. You know, Airfix did it with their FG1 and FGR2. I don't even get why they did that at all, on the basis that there's no detail to be changed between the 2 aircraft. You know, that strikes me as, you know, they looked at how other people were doing it and did it that way just because, without any real reference to necessity. And there's the other one, the F4, the Aardvarks, which is a great scheme anyway. I really do like the Aardvarks one. Yeah, so nice models. And like I say, I want to build those. I want to have a go at one of those quite soon, just to see how it's been refined. If there has been any refinement from the long nose ones, which I'm. Yeah, I would say, Pavel, that Tamiya did that, but you trust Tamiya implicitly.
Yeah, if you're going to do it,
you wouldn't. If Tamiya do it, you know it's just going to be a perfect fit, isn't it? Having said that, I haven't even seen that kit yet, so I don't. You know, I haven't put one together or anything, so I don't. But being as it's Tamiya, I would presume it will. It's just going to be perfect. It's going to be a perfect job. But if you're not absolutely at that cutting edge of molding technology, and fine molds are close, but they're not. You know, they're still not Tamiya.
No.
You know, there's only one company that's Tamiya, and that's Bandai.
Yes, Tamiya, Best color scheme ever applied to a short-nosed American F4. I'm assuming he means the.
I think he means the National Guard one, the Michigan. Sorry, that one.
Yeah, that's all right. All right.
But yeah, so you know, like I say, in spite of not being that impressed with the long nose, it didn't stop me then spending money on the short nose ones. So you know, take from that what you will, but I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, Jim Bates says, just to close off our little hobbycraft chats tonight, he says, I think some of the issues was that many of the 72nd scale Canadian subjects have some accuracy issues, including the Expediter, Otter, and CF100 and Arrow. But as you say, it was better than nothing, and the 48 scale kits tended to be better. I think that's perhaps that's always been my attitude, is that unless it is absolutely categorically balked, like the Hobbycraft vampires, like indeed even the Trumpeter vampires, or the Trumpeter. Yeah, we'll come to that in a minute. Or the Trumpeter's attempts at doing almost pretty much anything RAF in recent years.
Yeah.
You know, it's as if it's sometimes it can be. You know, I seem to remember. I think you remember when the monogram Messerschmitt 110 came out in the late 1990s, and there was this talk about the flaw, and it was, what is the flaw? And it was apparently something so unutterably insignificant that it probably took more time to fix than it did to mash away at a keyboard complaining about it. And so I think, you know, sometimes these kind of errors are things that possibly can be corrected or can be overcome.
We're spoiled these days. We are spoiled.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Andrew Hills says, is building another Svezda Herc easier because it's the second one? Well, go on, and here's your cue.
That's my second one. I mean, the wing isn't on yet, but I wouldn't say it's easier, Andy. I know what I know where the issues are this time round, so I was able to preempt them, and I was also able, because this is being built as a sponsored build from Andy, for which again, thanks very much, Andy. I've been able to do stuff to it that I wasn't able to do with the one that was being built for the hobby company. So I'm able to choose a different color scheme for this one. I've been able to rescribe the detail that I wanted to rescribe because I didn't think it was deep enough. All of that's the sort of thing that you can't really do if you're building it for the company. I mean, I've designed and printed my own fuel tanks for it. Not because the ones in the kit are inaccurate, but it's easier to get the detail that I want on those tanks if I just make and print my own ones. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's easier, Andy, but it's because I'm able to preempt stuff and deal with it in that sense. It's gone together actually very, very nicely. In fact, the only thing I need to discuss really is with Andy on what he wants doing with this after as it's a sponsored build. Does he want it for the shop or or something like that? But that's about 10 days work, I suppose, in between other projects, that one. Yeah, it's a fantastic overall. It's a fantastic model.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantastic model. It's great value. Yeah, buy one.
Of course, the good news about Wastefest was that I finally did get those Kettenkrad figures finished, and also I managed to get some paint on my Panzer IV. And also some paint on the little Hurricane. So we will be finishing those off. We're finishing those off rapidly. And the other projects we've got here, which includes the Rubicon Chevy that John Walker gave us, and also the cruiser tank that was sent down from Freight Dog Models, from Collins Freight Dog Models. So these are all projects which, where are we today? Looks at RSPB Robbing calendar.
22nd of September.
22nd of February. I'm actually hoping a couple of the smaller ones I really want to get absolutely wrapped up by the end of the month. And so going to October with possibly just the Panzer IV to deal with. And then we can move on to other things. As I say, I did start construction on the new Zvezda 76mm Sherman, which is fantastic. And again, I'm going to be very gushing about that kit because there are a lot of parts for what is a 25 quid kit, and it's getting money's worth. And there is a fabulous, that French scheme is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm looking forward to getting around to painting that, and again trying out some different ideas so that I don't go down the rabbit hole of constantly repeating myself in terms of technique and painting styles and things. So we are going to try some other things, but I'm also going to stream a couple of models. It's just going to be a streamlining process. And I've got that little 1/100 scale Zvezda Valentine to make. It's got about 6 parts. I will take some photographs and put it up on the page. I've been extraordinarily busy eating cake. So
I think the only other thing I've been on is still building
another Mirage. There's a surprise.
The Model Swift Mirage 3B, which I've started. You can see I've masked the nose off and canopy, or the windscreen's in place and masked now. So we're basically ready to start painting that. Mm-hmm. So again, as with all the Model Swift Mirages, what a fantastic kit that is. So yeah. But hopefully, by the time we come on air on Sunday, there'll be some paint on that. It's just dealing with the canopy. There's a lot of stuff to do with the canopy in terms of masking and painting, because there's some blind flying hoods and stuff that need to be dealt with. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's the other thing that's sort of galloping along at this point, if you like. So yeah, apart from that, that's all I've got going at the moment. Because I don't really have anything. Yeah, I mean, apart from the Hercules I'm building for Andy, there's not really anything too pressing in my in my kit line. I must get the mosquito masked off again and painted.
Well, we'll have to start discussing projects for another festival of modelling, which we've got coming up in November. So
yes,
we might have some ideas. We've got some ideas coming through now on what we might be covering with that, but that's all to be discussed behind the scenes. But I've spoken to Drew about this. The possibility that we're doing the Saturday actually somewhere else, but we're negotiating that at the moment. But that's an interesting possibility. We're going to have to wrap this up very soon. Stephen Pryor says no ICM B26K Invader, Drew.
Well, Mr. Hills, over to you.
And yes, we also I am currently negotiating with our various retail friends. Not in terms of price, just in terms of if they can get hold of some of these kits, because I do seriously want to grab some of those Dora Wings things, like the Swirsky P35 they've just released.
Yeah, I want the P43. I definitely want.
And the P43. Oh, that's another one. That's another one I was just going to say is Hobbycraft. You just reminded me. They did a lovely little range of P26P shooters in 48 scale.
Yes, they did. Yes,
they were lovely.
Yes,
I thought they were lovely. So, anyway. On that note, we will just say thank you to everybody who watched tonight. Sincerely, I'm very grateful for you taking out an hour of your time to watch two middle-aged men bicker in such an unprofessional manner as the way we do. We will be back on Sunday with the news program, and yeah, boy, we have news to catch up on. So, again, go and make the cup of tea. And
just a very quick one to Brian Wilton. I got it off of eBay. Our Mike Williams sent me the link, the eBay link for it. So there is a mask available on eBay. But outside of that, Brian, I'm afraid I don't know the manufacturer or anything. I saw it, clicked buy, and then walked away from the computer. And 2 days later, it turned up. So there is a perhaps Mr. Williams would care to. Would care to chip in.
And Mr. Hills says apparently an ICM Invader is on its way to you. So
with the meteors, Andy, with the meteors. In fact, I must give Andy a ring on Friday and pay up. Cleared a tab, paid a tab.
And Crazy Lock says, thanks for the conversation, even if you didn't save us any cake. No, we don't.
Every man for himself where cake's concerned.
We don't share cake. No,
we share a lot, but not cake.
Yeah, no, absolutely nothing. No, you misunderstood us on the cake front there. Absolutely, there is no sharing.
No,
cake.
No, Mr. Reeves, not a shiller. I'm paying for all of this stuff.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Right. That's it. Now let's go. So we'll see you on Sunday. Where we'll be talking about new kits that are coming out that have been announced this week, and probably there'll be another slew of them before Sunday night.
Yes, so there invariably is. So
invariably is. On that note, as always, just remains for us to say thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we'll see you at the weekend.
Take it easy, all.
Service.
Bye-bye.
Bye.